God willing. God willing. It is Christmas Eve, my friends. We have made it. Here we are again. Another year of celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. Let us always remember. However, this year I did want to bring a bit of new Christmas content. You know, I've done, did Apocrypha back in the day. I've even done Christmas trip reports. I wanted to find a spooky Christmas story. Settled on Lovecraft, as one does. It's easy to do. And you know, Lovecraft was a guy who was known for his mind-bending, esoteric horror, essentially. But it wasn't all horror and spooky. Though even on Christmas it was. Sometimes it was even joyous and cheerful. We'll get to that too. So, I would like to start this off by reading one of his poems entitled Festival, otherwise known as Yule Horror. I will call it Yule Horror, as to not confuse it with the next work I will read. It was first published in December 1926 in the popular pulp magazine Weird Tales, of course. I might go through some of that. I want to do more old magazines, go through some scans with you people. I've got a lot of that. We might just read some weird tales in the future. Yule Horror by H.P. Lovecraft. There is snow on the ground, and the valleys are cold, and a midnight profound blackly squats o'er the wold. But a light on the hilltops, half seen, hints of feastings unhallowed and old. There is death in the clouds, there is fear in the night, for the dead in their shrouds hail the sins turning flight, and chant wild in the woods as they dance round a Yule, altar, fungus, and white. No gale of earth's kind sway the forest of oak, where the sick boughs entwined by mad mistletoes choke, for these powers are the powers of the dark, from the graves of the lost druid folk. Beautiful poem. Definitely on the spooky side. We see references to things that are familiar to us in the Christmas season. However, they are made much older and mysterious, shrouded in the mists of time. Me and a friend were talking recently about how difficult it is to adapt Lovecraft to film, how few times it's been done well. Now, I think the horror of these creatures in the Lovecraft mythos is that you can't conceive of them. To conceive of them is to go mad, and to be unable to explain it to another person, essentially. That's why so many of Lovecraft's stories end in someone just killing themselves or dying, something like that. They meet a grim end, because to know these things is to die. To lose sense of your individuality and ego in seeing it, and to know that you are so minuscule. And I think that's why it's very hard to adapt a lot of these stories. And you know, the best adaptation I've seen of Lovecraft type stuff is like Nicolas Cage losing his mind in Color Out of Space. And like the monsters are interesting in that and all, but then once you show these things, to show them in film is to state that you can conceive of them and it's not such a big deal. Let's keep it mysterious, folks. Let's keep it mysterious. Keep Christmas mysterious. How does Christmas magic work? Not even Santa knows. He does not know. I want to move on to The Festival, a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, written in October of 1923 and published in the January 1925 issue of Weird Tales. It is considered to be one of the first of his Cthulhu mythos stories. This is a longer one. This is the meat and potatoes of this short stream, God willing. God willing. I have things to do. It's almost Christmas. Spend time with the family, baby. Spend time with Jesus. My man. And I don't think, like, these stories about druids and Yule and these much older traditions, I don't think they take away from what we celebrate today. I think there is something perennial in this idea of the lowest point of the sun, the lowest point of the energy that we receive on this earth, rising again. It's a symbol of ages that are defined by people like Jesus. The festival. I'm gonna try to read this Latin. I feel like I should probably read it. Why not? Efciant demonis utque non sunt sic tamen quasi sint, conspicienda hominibus exhibiant, lactantius. Of course! Love that guy. Merry Christmas to him. I was far from home, and the spell of the eastern sea was upon me. In the twilight, I heard it pounding on the rocks, and I knew it lay just over the hill, where the twisting willows writhed against the clearing sky, and the first stars of evening. And because my fathers had called me to the old town beyond, I pushed on through the shallow, new-fallen snow along the road that soared lonely up to where Aldebaran twinkled among the trees. On toward the very ancient town I had never seen but often dreamed of. It was the Yuletide, which men call Christmas, though they know in their hearts it is older than Bethlehem and Babylon, older than Memphis and mankind. It was the Yuletide, and I had come at last to the ancient sea town where my people had dwelt and kept festival in the elder time when festival was forbidden. Where also they had commanded their sons to keep festival once every century, that the memory of primal secrets might not be forgotten. Mine were an old people, old even when this land was settled 300 years before, and they were strange, because they had come as dark, furtive folk from the opiate southern gardens of orchids, and spoken another tongue before they learnt the tongue of the blue-eyed fishers. And now they were scattered, and shared only the rituals of mysteries that none living could understand. I was the only one who came back that night to the old fishing town as legend bade, for only the poor and the lonely remember. Then, beyond the hill's crest, I saw Kingsport outspread frostily in the gloaming, snowy I saw Kingsport outspread frostily in the gloaming. Snowy Kingsport, with its ancient vanes and steeples, ridgepoles and chimney pots, wharves and small bridges, willow trees and graveyards, endless labyrinths of steep, narrow, crooked streets, and dizzy church-crowned central peak that time durst not touch. Ceaseless mazes of colonial houses piled and scattered at all angles and levels like a child's disordered blocks. Antiquity hovering on gray wings over winter-whitened gables and gambrel roofs. And against the rotting wharves the sea pounded, the secretive, immemorial sea out of which the people had come in the elder time. Beside the road at its crest, a still higher summit rose, bleak and windswept, and I saw that it was a burying ground where black gravestones stuck ghoulishly through the snow like the decayed fingernails of a gigantic corpse. The printless road was very lonely, and sometimes I thought I had heard a distant, horrible creaking, as of a gibbet in the wind. They had hanged 4 kinsmen of mine for witchcraft in 1692, but I did not know just where. As the road wound down the seaward slope, I listened for the merry sounds of a village at evening, but did not hear them. Then I thought of the season, and felt that these old Puritan folk might well have Christmas customs strange to me and full of silent hearthside prayer. So after that I did not listen for merriment or look for wayfarers, but kept on down past the hushed, lighted farmhouses and shadowy stone walls to where the signs of ancient shops and sea taverns creaked in the salt breeze, and the grotesque knockers of pillared doorways glistened along deserted, unpaved lanes in the light of little, curtained windows. I had seen maps of the town and knew where to find the home of my people. It was told that I should be known and welcomed, for village legend lives long. So I hastened through back street to Circle Court, and across the fresh snow on the one full flagstone pavement in the town, to where Green Lane leads off behind the market house. I was glad I had chosen to walk. The white village had seemed very beautiful from the hill, and now I was eager to knock at the door of my people. The 7th house on the left in Green Lane, with an ancient peaked roof and jutting second story, all built before 1650. There were lights inside the house when I came upon it, and I saw from the diamond window panes that it must have been kept very close to its antique state. The upper part overhung the narrow, grass-grown street and nearly met the overhanging part of the house opposite, so that I was almost in a tunnel, with the low stone doorstep wholly free from snow. There was no sidewalk, but many houses had high doors reached by double flights of steps with iron railings. It was an odd scene, and because I was strange to New England, I had never known its like before. Though it pleased me, I would have relished it better if there had been footprints in the snow and people in the streets, and a few windows without drawn curtains. A lot of these old words used that were probably old even when Lovecraft wrote them. They drive me insane while I read them, not knowing their meaning, but gleaning something of their context. And understanding all the same, regardless of the stuttering. The madness seeping through my words. Always seeping. We got Naman Vats out there in the comments, who's here to show his appreciation to the tremendous job I did on Agora. Who wishes me great success. I appreciate that. I will get back to that. I added another entry recently, and as soon as the Christmas madness is over, I intend to get back to it. I will finish that, I promise you. Thank you very much. Back to the story. When I sounded the archaic iron knocker, I was half afraid. Some fear had been gathering in me, perhaps because of the strangeness of my heritage, and the bleakness of the evening, and the queerness of the silence in that aged town of curious customs. And when my knock was answered, I was fully afraid, because I had not heard any footsteps before the door creaked open. But I was not afraid long, for the gowned, slippered old man in the doorway had a bland face that reassured me. And though he made signs that he was dumb, he wrote a quaint and ancient welcome with the stylus and wax tablet he carried. He beckoned me into a low, candlelit room with massive exposed rafters and dark, stiff, sparse furniture of the 17th century. The past was vivid there, for not an attribute was missing. There was a cavernous fireplace and a spinning wheel, at which a bent old woman in loose wrapper and deep poke bonnet sat back toward me, silently spinning despite the festive season. An infinite dampness seemed upon the place, and I marveled that no fire should be blazing. The high-backed settle faced the row of curtained windows at the left, and seemed to be occupied, though I was not sure. I did not like everything about what I saw, and felt again the fear I had. This fear grew stronger from what had before lessened it. For the more I looked at the old man's bland face, the more its very blandness terrified me. The eyes never moved, and the skin was too like wax. Finally, I was sure it was not a face at all, but a fiendishly cunning mask. But the flabby hands, curiously gloved, wrote genially on the tablet and told me I must wait a while before I could be led to the place of festival. Pointing to a chair, table, and pile of books, the old man now left the room. And when I sat down to read, I saw that the books were hoary and moldy, and that they included old Morrister's wild marvels of science and terrible Seducismus Triumphatus of Joseph Glanville, published in 1681, and shocking Demonia Trea of Remigius. Demonatreia of Remigius, printed in 1595 at Lyons, and worst of all, the unmentionable Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred. In Olaus Wormius' forbidden Latin translation, even. A book which I had never seen, but of which I had heard monstrous things whispered. No one spoke to me, but I could hear the creaking of signs in the wind outside and the whir of the wheel as the bonneted old woman continued her silent spinning. I thought the room and the books and the people very morbid and disquieting, but because an old tradition of my father's had summoned me to strange feastings, I resolved to expect queer things. So I tried to read, and soon became trembling absorbed by something I found in that accursed Necronomicon, a thought and a legend too hideous for sanity or consciousness. But I disliked it when I fancied I heard the closing of one of the windows, that the settle faced as if it had been stealthily opened. The settle. I don't know what that means. The closing of one of the windows that the settle faced, as if it had been stealthily opened. It had seemed to follow a whirring that was not of the old woman's spinning wheel. This was not much, though, for the old woman was spinning very hard, and the aged clock had been striking. After that I lost the feeling that there were persons on the settle, and was reading intently and shudderingly, when the old man came back booted and dressed in a loose antique costume, and sat down on that very bench so that I could not see him. It was certainly nervous, waiting, and the blasphemous book in my hand made it doubly so, when 11 o'clock struck. However, the old man stood up, glided to a massive carved chest in a corner, and got 2 hooded cloaks, one of which he donned, and the other of which he draped round the old woman, who was ceasing her monotonous spinning. Then they both started for the outer door, the woman lamely creeping, and the old man, after picking up the very book I had been reading, beckoning me as he drew his hood over the unmoving face or mask. We went out into the moonless and tortuous network of that incredibly ancient town, went out as the lights in the curtained windows disappeared one by one, and the dog star leered at the throng of cowled, cloaked figures that poured silently from every doorway and formed monstrous processions up this street and that. Past the creaking signs and antediluvian gables, the thatched roofs and the diamond-paned windows, threading precipitous lanes where decaying houses overlapped and crumbled together, gliding across open courts and churchyards where the bobbing lanterns made eldritch, drunken constellations. Amid these hushed throngs, I followed my voiceless guides, jostled by elbows that seemed preternaturally soft, and pressed by chests and stomachs that seemed abnormally pulpy. But seeing never a face and hearing never a word, up, the eerie columns slithered, and I saw that all the travelers were converging as they flowed near a sort of focus of crazy alleys at the top of a high hill in the center of town, where perched a great white church. I had seen it from the road's crest when I looked at Kingsport in the new dusk, and it made me shiver because Aldebaran had seemed to balance itself a moment on the ghostly spire. There was an open space around the church, partly a churchyard with spectral shafts, and partly a half-paved square, swept near bare of snow by the wind, and lined with unwholesomely archaic houses, having peaked roofs and overhanging gables. Death fires danced over the tombs, revealing gruesome vistas, though queerly failing to cast any shadow. Past the churchyard, where there were no houses, I could see over the hill's summit, and watch the glimmer of the stars on that harbor, though the town was invisible in the dark. Only once in a while a lantern bobbed horribly, through serpentine alleys on its way to overtake the throng that was now slipping speechlessly into the church. I waited till the crowd had oozed into the black doorway, until all the stragglers had followed. The old man was pulling at my sleeve, but I was determined to be the last. Then finally I went, the sinister man and the old spinning woman before me. Crossing the threshold into the swarming temple of unknown darkness, I turned once to look at the outside world as the churchyard phosphorescence cast a sickly glow on the hilltop pavement. As I did so, I shuddered. For though the wind had not left much snow, a few patches did remain on the path near the door. And in that fleeting backward look, it seemed to my troubled eye that they bore no mark of passing feet, not even mine. The church was scarce lighted by all the lanterns that had entered it, for most of the throng had already vanished. They had streamed up the aisle before the high white pews to the trap door of the vaults which yawned loathsomely open, just before the pulpit, and were now squirming noiselessly in. I followed dumbly down the foot-worn steps and into the dank, suffocating crypt. The tall of that sinuous line of night marchers seemed very horrible, and I saw them wriggle into a venerable tomb. They seemed more horrible still. Then I noticed that the tomb's floor had an aperture, down which the throng was sliding, and in a moment we were all descending an ominous staircase of rough-hewn stone. A narrow spiral staircase, damp and peculiarly odorous, that wound endlessly down the bowels of the hill, past monotonous walls of dripping stone, blocks, and crumbling mortar. It was a silent, shocking descent, and I observed, after a horrible interval, that the walls and steps were changing in nature, as if chiseled out of solid rock. What mainly troubled me was that the myriad footfalls made no sound and set up no echoes. After more aeons of descent, I saw some side passages or burrows leading from unknown recesses of blackness to the shaft of nighted mystery. Soon they became excessive numerous, like impious catacombs of nameless menace, and their pungent odor of decay grew quite unbearable. I knew we must have passed down through the mountain and beneath the earth of Kingsport itself, and I shivered at a town that should be so aged and maggoty with subterraneous evil. Then I saw the lurid shimmering of pale light, and heard the insidious lapping of sunless waters. Again I shivered, for I did not like the things that night had brought, and wished bitterly that no forefather had summoned me to this primal rite. As the steps and passage grew broader, I heard another sound, the thin, whining mockery of a feeble flute. And suddenly there spread out before me the boundless vista of an inner world, a vast fungus shore, lit by a belching column of sick greenish flame, and washed by a wide oily river that flowed from abysses frightful and unsuspecting to join the blackest gulfs of immemorial ocean. You know, it's not like these words are that difficult for me, but what is difficult for reading something like this is the description goes on twice as long as you expect, which is the strength of all of this. The detail you get, the vibe you receive when you read this, the madness that engulfs you as you try to decipher this. The sentences run for 3 times what you expect, and that's what pulls you in. The rambling. The detailed rambling. The world-building rambling of a madman. Fainting and gasping, I looked at that unhallowed Erebus of Titan toadstools, leprous fire, and slimy water, and saw the cloaked throngs forming a semicircle around the blazing pillar. It was the Yule Rite, older than man and fated to survive him. The primal rite of the solstice and of spring's promise beyond the snows, the rite of fire and evergreen, light and music. And in that Stygian grotto I saw them do the rite and adore the sick pillar of flame and throw into the waters handfuls of gouged out water. Throw into the water handfuls gouged out of the viscous vegetation which glittered green in the chlorotic glare. Let's try that again. throw into the water handfuls gouged out of the viscous vegetation which glittered green in the chlorotic glare. Damn. I saw this, and I saw something amorphously squatted far away from the light, piping noisomely on a flute. And as the thing piped, I thought I heard noxious muffled flutterings in the fetid darkness where I could not see. But what frightened me most was that flaming column, spouting volcanically from depths profound and inconceivable, casting no shadows as healthy flames should, and coating the nitrous stone above with a nasty venomous verdigris. For in all that seething combustion no warmth lay, but only the clamminess of death and corruption. I like that line. Something amorphously squatted far away from the light, piping noisomely on a flute. Very, very scary. The man who had brought me now squirmed to a point directly beside the hideous flame, and made stiff ceremonial motions to the semicircle he faced. At certain stages of the ritual, they did groveling obeisance. Obeisance, I know this word. They did groveling obeisance, especially when he held above his head that abhorrent Necronomicon he had taken with him. And I shared all the obeisances, because I had been summoned to this festival by the writings of my forefathers. Then the old man made a signal to the half-seen flute player in the darkness, which player thereupon changed its feeble drone to a scarce louder drone in another key, precipitating as it did a horror so unthinkable and unexpected. At this horror I sank nearly to the lichened earth, transfixed with a dread not of this nor any world, but only of the mad spaces between the stars. Out of the unimaginable blackness beyond the gangrenous glare of that cold flame, out of the Tartarian leagues through which that oily river rolled uncanny, unheard and unsuspected, there flopped rhythmically a horde of tame, trained, hybrid winged things. Tame, trained, hybrid winged things that no sound eye could ever wholly grasp, or sound brain ever wholly remember. They were not altogether crows, nor moles, nor buzzards, nor ants, nor vampire bats, nor decomposed human beings, but something I cannot and must not recall. They flopped limply along, half with their webbed feet, and half with their membranous wings. And as they reached the throng of celebrants, the cowled figures seized and mounted them and rode off, one by one, along the reaches of that unlighted river, into pits and galleries of panic where poison springs feed frightfully in undiscoverable cataracts. Here we have the descriptions that I'm talking about, where the description is not so much what it is. Here, you are told what it is not. What is it? It is mad spaces between the stars. Pure madness. The old spinning woman had gone with the throng, and the old man remained only because I had refused when he motioned me to seize an animal and ride like the rest. I saw when I staggered to my feet that the amorphous flute player had rolled out of sight, but that two of the beasts were patiently standing by. As I hung back, the old man produced his stylus and tablet and wrote that he was the true deputy of my fathers who had founded the Yule worship in this ancient place. That it had been decreed I should come back, and that the most secret mysteries were yet to be performed. He wrote this in a very ancient hand, and when I still hesitated, he pulled from his loose robe a seal ring and a watch, both with my family arms, to prove that he was what he said. But it was a hideous proof, because I knew from old papers that the watch had been buried with my great-great-great-great-grandfather in 1698. Presently the old man drew back his hood and pointed to the family resemblance in his face, but I only shuddered, because I was sure that the face was merely a devilish waxen mask. The flopping animals were now scratching restlessly at the lichens, and I saw that the old man was nearly as restless himself. When one of these things began to waddle and edge away, he turned quickly to stop it, so that the suddenness of his motion dislodged the waxen mask from what should have been his head. And then, because that nightmare's position barred me from the stone staircase down which we had come, I flung myself into the oily underground river that bubbled somewhere to the caves of the sea. Flung myself into that putrescent juice of Earth's inner horrors. Before the madness of my screams could bring down upon me all the charnel legions of these pest gulfs. Pest guifs? I don't know. Damn. Flung myself into that putrescent juice of Earth's inner horrors before the madness of my screams could bring down upon me all the charnel legions of these pest guifs might conceal. At the hospital, they told me I had been found half frozen in Kingsport Harbor at dawn, clinging to the drifting spar that accident sent to save me. They told me I had taken the wrong fork of the hill road that night before and fallen over the cliffs at Orange Point, a thing they deducted from prints found in the snow. There was nothing I could say because everything was wrong. Everything was wrong. With the broad window showing a sea of roofs in which only about 1 in 5 was ancient, and the sound of trolleys and motors in the streets below. They insisted that this was Kingsport, and I could not deny it. When I went delirious at hearing that the hospital stood near the old churchyard on Central Hill, they sent me to St. Mary's Hospital in Arkham, where I could have better care. I liked it there, for the doctors were broad-minded, and even lent me their influence in obtaining the carefully sheltered copy of Alhazred's objectionable Necronomicon from the library of Miskatonic University. They said something about a psychosis and agreed that I had better get my harassing obsessions off my mind. I had better get them off my mind. So I read again the hideous chapter and shuddered doubly, because it was indeed not new to me. I had seen it before. Let footprints tell what they might, and where it was I had seen were best forgotten. There was no one in waking hours who could remind me of it, but my dreams are filled with terror, because of phrases I dare not quote. I dare quote only one paragraph, put into such English as I can make from the awkward low Latin. "The nethermost caverns," wrote the mad Arab, "are not for the fathoming of eyes that see, for their marvels are strange and terrific. Cursed the ground, where dead thoughts live new and oddly bodied, and even the mind that is held by no head. Wisely did Ibn Sichakabak say that happy is the tomb where no wizard hath lain, and happy the town at night whose wizards are all in ashes. For it is of old rumor that the soul of the devil bought hastes not from his charnel clay, but fats and instructs the very worm that gnaws. Till out of corruption horrid life springs, and the dull scavengers of earth wax crafty to vex it, and swell monstrous to plague it. Great holes secretly are digged where earth's pores ought to suffice, and things have learnt to walk that ought to crawl." End. A very, very interesting tale. When I read it, I get a very clear sense of onomatopoeia. As if when the winged creatures show up, you can hear the beating of the wings in the words that I'm saying. You can hear the footfalls almost, where there are no footfalls at all. I think often in that reading, there's a lot of S sounds. Something serpentine and slithering and sickly. Scar in the chat. Ayo, best stream ever! This is not the best stream ever. Don't you lie to me on Christmas. Christmas is not a time for lies, but I do appreciate it. Merry Christmas, my friend. Planet Zero out there, give a strong huzzah for Kwanzaa. What do you say on Kwanzaa? Harambe! Is that what we do? I think something like that. Whatever you celebrate, no matter how old and dark and oily it might be. I hope it's good. Praise Jesus also. Yeah. Okay. Next, I will read. I'll probably finish off here. How long has this been? Can I throw in something else? Something else to stumble and stutter over in the madness of my mind? There's always time for that, right? Been going just over a half hour. That's not bad. I wanted to do 40 minutes. I want to read for you the poem Christmastide by H.P. Lovecraft. And here's where we go from spooky and slithery to nice and cheerful. Good Christmas feelings. Oh, here we go. Christmastide is a short poem by Lovecraft, first published in 1920 within the Tryout magazine. Christmastide. The cottage hearth beams warm and bright. The candles gaily glow. The stars emit a kinder light above the drifted snow. Down from the sky a magic steals to glad the passing year. And belfries sing with joyous peals, for Christmastide is here. It's Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas, everyone. I love you all. Now, the viewers are finally going up, so I gotta add something else, right? I'm gonna read... I think we're gonna take a turn from Lovecraft, and we're gonna go to Edgar Allan Poe, and I'm gonna get one more thing in for the people on Christmas. God bless us, everyone. I had it up, and then I took it down because I'm like, I don't need to add other stuff to this. Just the Lovecraft will do. But no, this is my gift to you. All right, now I gotta find it again. And there will be more Christmas streams. I actually have another Christmas Apocrypha stream lined up that I'm going to do. I don't know if I'll do that tomorrow for Christmas Eve, tonight maybe even Christmas Day. But I also have, aside from that, a paranormal stream to do that's centered around Christmas. So I got plenty. I want to get it in. I gotta get it in. I should have time. So let's end this with The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Why not? Let's do it. Just more.
Shake off the excess.
Hey! Someone paid me? Never happens. Scar, you're my guy. Thank you. $1 in the tip jar. The collection plate. We're doing this. Scar says, I'm not lying. This is the best stream ever. Seriously, I appreciate the grind, and I want to wish all you fellas Merry fucking Christmas, boys. That's how it be. Thank you very much, dude. It's awesome. Means everything to me. It's the thought that counts. It really is. Alright, so The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. I want to read this as psychotic as possible, but I also don't want to just trip and stumble over my words the whole time. So let's see. I'd like to do the Francis E. Deck. Here! The sledges with the bells! Silver bells! Should I do it? Should I blow out my voice this Christmas? Let me know if I should do it. It's gonna fuck me up, dude. But I want to read it like that. Okay. Here, the sledges with the bells, silver bells. What a world of merriment their melody foretells. How they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the icy air of night, while the stars that oversprinkle all the heavens seem to twinkle with crystalline delight. Keeping in time, in a sort of runic rhyme to the tintinabulations that so musically wells from the bells, 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 from the jingling and the tinkling of the bells. Should I read it like that, or is that just insufferable? Hear the mellow wedding bells, golden bells. What a world of happiness their harmony foretells. Through the balmy air of night, how they ring out their delight. From the molten golden notes, and all in tune, what a liquid ditty floats. To the turtle dove that listens while she gloats on the moon. Oh, from out the sounding cells, what a gush of euphony voluminously wells. How it swells, how it dwells on the future, how it tells of the rapture that impels. To the swinging and the ringing of the bells, bells, bells of the bells, 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 bells. To the rhyming and the chiming of the bells. Hear the loud alarm bells, brazen bells, what a tale of terror now their turbulency tells. In the startled ear of night, how they scream out their affright. Too much horrified to speak, they can only shriek, shriek out of tune, in clamorous, appealing to the mercy of the fire, in a mad expostulation with the deaf and frantic fire, leaping higher, 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 with a desperate desire and a resolute endeavor now, now to sit or never, by the side of the pale-faced moon. Oh, the bells, 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 what a tale their terror tells. Of despair, how they clang and clash and roar, what a horror they outpour. On the bosom of the palpitating air, yet the ear it fully knows by the twanging and the clanging, how the danger ebbs and flows. Yet the ear distinctly tells in the jangling and the wrangling, how the danger sinks and swells by the sinking or the swelling in the anger of the bells, of the bells, of the bells, 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 in the clamor and the clangor of the bells. Hear the tolling of the bells, iron bells. What a world of solemn thought their monotony compels. In the silence of the night, how we shiver with affright at the melancholy menace in their tone. For every sound that floats from the rust within their throats is a groan. And the people, the people, they that dwell upon the steeple all alone, and who tolling, tolling, tolling in that muffled monotone. We got this. We got this. Feel a glory in so rolling on the human heart a stone. They are neither man nor woman. They are neither brute nor human. They are ghouls. And their king it is who tolls. And he rolls, 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 rolls. And pain from the bells. And his merry bosom swells with the pain of the bells. And he dances and he yells, keeping in time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme to the pain of the bells, keeping in time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme to the throbbing of the bells, 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 to the sobbing of the bells, keeping time, 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 as he knells, 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 in a happy runic rhyme to the rolling of the bells, 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 to the tolling of the bells, 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 to the moaning and the groaning of the bells. From the works of the late Edgar Allan Poe, Volume 2, 1850. It felt good. I love ranting and madness. I love doing it. Do you think Edgar Allan Poe would have been the hottest rapper of winter 2023? I think so. Have yourself a mad Christmas. A sinuous Christmas. Thank you very much for joining me for this quick stream. There will be more where that came from. Thank you to Scar. Thank you to my friends who read Agora. Thank you to Naman Vats and Plunit Zero. And every single one of you. Merry Christmas and God bless.